Hey, Paul here. So let's take a quick dive into being a guy who suffers from insecurity issues, some low self-esteem. Maybe you're a woman watching this and it's your man or your husband you're worried about. Maybe you're a guy and you're just curious and you feel this sort of sense of dread and lack and this hole you just can't fill, this sort of fear and anxiety in you. We're going to talk about 3 points. One, we're going to talk about this hole inside that you got, that he has. What is this? What is this hole that a guy has inside? We're going to talk about 2, trying to fill this hole, right? By seeking attention from the opposite sex, seeking fame, glory, money, whatever else you can to fill this black hole inside you, okay? And 3, we're going to talk about even when a guy gets what he wants, right? He thinks he gets what he wanted. Maybe he chased after a certain thing with vigor, and he got it, and he's still unfulfilled, and it keeps going, and that actually makes him feel worse because then he wonders, well, what the hell now? What's really wrong with me? Okay, so these are 3 big topics. Then we're going to wrap it up and review maybe what you can do. If you're a guy, if you're a girl, what you can do about this, okay? So let's go ahead and jump in. Point 1, this hole inside. What is this? Well, I always tell a story. I remember being in 3rd grade, and it's the first time in my life I really felt like something was wrong with me. I just felt different. I felt this separation between me and other people. 3rd grade, little kid, and I looked at other kids and I thought, you know what, I'm different than them. And literally, I'd never forget that. And that feeling kind of continued throughout my life. And it left me feeling isolated and alone. I always felt like the odd man out. I think maybe some of this stemmed from when I was a kid, really young, growing up. And this was back in the 80s, okay? And I was one of the first Ritalin babies ever. They had just developed this medicine called Ritalin for ADHD. I was kind of a hyper kid. This was a big deal back then. They took me to a lot of specialists, made me look at those crazy drawings, right? Took me to a number of doctors who would take my mom into some corner without me, and I would see them, talking about me, and I felt like a freaking weirdo. And that really was what it felt like. And then when I got in trouble in school, it just reinforced that the teachers were always taking me out of class. What's wrong with this kid? What's wrong with this kid? My parents didn't get along in the first place, and then I saw this making it worse. And I upset my mother and upset my father, and I felt kind of rejected by them. I felt even more alone in my own house and ignored. And, boo-hoo, that's not what this is about. I recognize these things now, okay? So I want to tell you where I think that started, this feeling of feeling different. And for a guy, they call it terminal uniqueness in Alcoholics Anonymous, feeling like we're different in a bad way, special in a bad way. Now, sometimes, like I did as a defense mechanism, your guy maybe turns that around and turns it into, well, I'm so much fucking better than everybody, pardon my language. I'm so much better than everyone. And that's a defense mechanism. Because really, you may, like I ended up turning to some violence, turning to alcohol and drugs, to women. All 3 of those together were just a real blast. And, but I would cry myself to sleep many nights or hit my knees and just pray for God to change me. So all that blustering on the outside was just trying to cover up this hole, this weakness, I felt like a little kid on the inside. And I feel like 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, I never really progressed much past that. I felt this feeling of differentness, and I felt like something that could have helped was just never there. And it just kept getting worse. And then, once I hit high school, we're going to go into point 2, because this is where seeking attention and craving to fill these holes, when that becomes possible. When you're a guy, when you find something that fills this hole, this lack that you have inside you, this natural kind of sense of emptiness or fear, isolation, right? When you find something, women, alcohol for a lot of guys, or drugs, when you find something that works, which is usually when you're in puberty, when you're in teen, right? When you start be able to partake in these things, alcohol, drugs, attention, being popular, getting in trouble even, the attention that comes with that, we latch onto those things. And it's not our fault. It's all we had at our disposal at the time. So don't blame yourself and don't blame him. It's all we knew that worked. And God, it worked. In your brain, right, your chemicals, when something works, when it gives you a high, when it gives you a hit, and that feeling, that anxiety dissipates for a time. Your brain doesn't forget that, okay? And it slowly starts to lay down a pathway in there. Okay, now this is really the science of addiction here. And this is why people can be addicted to a number of things, not just drugs, right? Sex, gambling, powerful things that change the way we feel. Because I had this, kind of icky feeling in me since I was a child. And then when I found booze and the ladies and career, making lots of money, attention in high school, I latched onto those things and ran off with them. So there was a craving to keep doing this because it worked. And unfortunately, we get used to everything. As humans, we have something called the hedonic treadmill, where everything we have, unfortunately, we just get used to it, right? So I'd get attention from girls, and then I would just want more. Or I'd get in trouble and get some attention, and then I wanted it again. I got drunk on booze, and then all of a sudden I needed more. And multiply that times a number of years where that was pretty much my only solution for, depression, anxiety, loneliness. And my life just kept getting worse and spinning more out of control. So there's this attention and craving to always change the way he feels, okay? And this is like addict behavior. This is how a lot of addicts, I'm telling a story, right, of a common addict or alcoholic, honestly. Same things kind of I've said about childhood, about feeling different, unique, and lonely. And so those things work. So he's going to crave to keep filling those holes with attention from the opposite sex. And maybe that's what hurts so much. Attention from the opposite sex. Sexting, texting, dating apps. Always want to go out maybe without you. Maybe you want to go out without your woman and get messed up, get drunk. Just change the way you feel. Take a little vacation from yourself, I used to call it. What's the big deal? And I'm just taking a vacation from myself. Now that proceeded into getting into a lot of trouble. There was consequences, pretty quick actually, to getting blackout drunk, to cheating on people that I really cared about. There was women I really wanted to love, that I loved, that I thought were amazing people. And I just kept messing things up, and I kept sabotaging. And I didn't know who to blame. I blamed myself, but I refused to look at the choices I was making that were getting me there. I thought I saw no way out from this behavior. And then, let's go ahead to point 3, okay, which is once we get these things, and I kind of alluded to this. Once your guy gets those things, maybe he gets the job he wants. Maybe he got you. Maybe you were the woman he was after for so long that he romanced and swept away. When he gets a lot of money, when he gets the woman, when he gets the attention, when he gets the fame or the notoriety, he's empty inside. He needs more. It doesn't fill the hole he thought it would. It's a black hole, and things keep flying in there. And that is very hard for a guy to deal with. You feel powerless. You feel helpless. You're trying so hard to find a solution, right? And once you finally get these things, once I finally get the right woman, the right job, the right friends, the right image, the right body, maybe he's obsessed with working out, then I'll feel all right with myself. Then everything will be okay. The story will be perfect. It'll be like the fairy tale ending, right? It's the funny thing about fairy tales. When they cut to the end of the movie, you don't see all the shit after. That's not it, right? So, and that's scary. And then this leads to more behavior to keep trying to fill these holes, to fill this lack, okay? And that leads to some pretty shameful and dishonorable behavior. And that can, the choices that you make when you're acting from insecurity, from lack, okay, from fear, from dread, are bad choices. And a lot of times you go down paths you didn't see yourself go down. And there's regrets and shame. And there's an expression I like to use called the 9th dimension of shame, because you're just layering mistakes and then running away from those and making another mistake. And you're just layering guilt upon shame upon shame. And then your guy may end up kind of getting lost. Maybe you're a guy watching this. Maybe you end up lost. You don't know which way is up. You don't know how the hell to get out of this hole you keep digging for yourself. And it's a pretty dark place to be. Okay, so I want to review what we've said real quick and tell you maybe what you can do. Give you some ideas, give you some things that worked for me. Okay, I'm not a therapist. Disclaimer, I'm just a guy on YouTube. I figured a lot of stuff out in my life. I went from living in a, unfinished basement with a bunch of spiders for a few years and having no way out, doing things I was really not proud of, not really seeing my kids. Now I do really, really well. I mean, I make a lot of money, not that that's everything, but I make a lot of money. I'm sober. I have a great relationship with my children. I'm dedicated, committed. People take advice from me. People trust me to do big business deals. I'm reliable. I mean, it's just incredible, and it's only getting better. But I want to tell you, in closing, that so you got this hole inside, okay? It's this sense of lack that you just can't fill. A guy cannot stand to sit with himself in a room alone. That's like torture. It's like that's the nightmare. It's just being alone with all the thoughts and feelings. Just feeling 100% like yourself can be misery for someone who suffers like this. Now I'm picking men, but this can also be women. This is a human condition, sadly. Okay, So when you feel that way, it's natural to want to make that pain go away. Pain does not feel good. So you crave things that provide a powerful, immediate return. Shortcuts are good when you're suffering, right? Take away the pain. A lot of times that leads to overeating, to alcohol, to irresponsible sex, to just terrible hedonistic decisions that are made in the moment to moment living, okay? Not taking the long view. It's really hard for someone like this to take the long road, to see things way out, because they don't have really hope that anything is going to be ever different. All they can think is, how do I change the way I feel right now as soon as possible? So there's that craving to make this feeling go away, and that leads to bad decisions, okay? And then 3, even if something ends up working out somehow with this way of living, you luck into something. I lucked into some pretty darn good jobs back then, some incredible women. You screw it up because that wasn't enough. That wasn't it, right? And then you're like, oh my gosh, what's wrong? I need more. I need something else. This wasn't it. Now I need something else. And you're hopping and hopping. And this is why a lot of times also you'll see these people change jobs, change business ideas like that, make $1 million here, try to make $1 million there. They're always hopping from thing to thing, from relationship to relationship. And even when they leave a relationship, they just can't seem to let it go, can they? They don't want to let things go because they feel like they're never going to get more. So it's really just living from a place of extreme lack. And it's tough, it's miserable, and it's really sad. So what can you do? I'm going to come at it from 2 perspectives, okay? If you're a woman and you're with someone like this, I have a lot of women who watch my channel, so forgive me if you're a dude watching, brother. I just have a lot of women who watch. So if you're a woman and you're with a guy like this, I hate to say it, and don't get offended, dudes, but there's really not much you can do. This stuff runs deep. It takes a long time to solve. I knew I had issues. I knew, and I admitted it, but I didn't do the work. I refused to do the work because it was hard, really hard, to take that narrow, hard path of feeling all my feelings, of finding a power greater than myself, which is God to me, can be universe, can be Buddha, can be whatever. But I had to enter a 12-step program of recovery, Alcoholics Anonymous, which actually, believe it or not, covers all of these bases because it's all intertwined. They say my drinking and my behaviors through that were a symptom of something bigger. And that was lacking God, lacking a true father figure and role model in my life to attach myself to. I felt lost. So if you hear me talking right now, these are big philosophical issues. It's big. It contains a radical shift has to happen, okay? And you can't just have a pep talk with your guy or cut out a couple Cosmo articles. And don't be offended, please. This is my experience, okay? You can't, that's not going to fix him. And if you come at him straight, it may make him very defensive or hurt his feelings or make him dive even more into behaviors to numb these icky feelings you bring up away. So just warning there, okay? Now, I know you may care about a man like this deeply. It's funny how guys like this, like myself, tend to attract amazing people who care. But I'll just tell you right now, I wrote an article about a woman that I was with, that 9 Things to Know If You Love a Guy with Low Self-Esteem article I wrote that was read a couple million times. Mary, I called her in the article. She couldn't change me. And to be honest, it took about 7 years, 6 to 7 years after we split up, that I finally started making significant, big, wholesale changes that have stuck. So it's going to be really tough for you. I just want to tell you that. Okay, and maybe if there is some addict behavior in there, though, because a lot of times there is, then maybe that can be a way to go. Okay, 12-step recovery programs for all kinds of things out there. Celebrate Recovery, part of church. I mean, there's amazing programs out there. The whole point of recovery, of 12-step programs, is that a person, man or woman, has to admit, I'm not the center of the universe. Okay, I give up. My plan has not worked. My plan, my way of living, my ideas, my best ideas took me to the worst possible places I could have ever imagined. So I was finally ready to give that up, okay, and ready to begin the long, arduous path of turning that over to a higher power. And that's amazing stuff. If your guy's getting there, I think there's hope. It's still an extremely tough process, though. Now, if you're a guy, let's switch gears, okay? Brother, I'm very sorry that you're suffering like this or that you've had these thoughts or feelings. If you're grappling with this stuff, it sucks. It sucks. It's painful, and I don't blame you for wanting to change the way you feel with drugs, with women, with alcohol, with money, with career, with business ideas, with running yourself ragged. Maybe doing backflips in your head all the time. It's tough. So my advice to you is to get real, to do a lot of self-study, and to really just ask yourself, how much worse am I willing to let this get? I mean, usually for me, the writing was on the wall for years, and I was stuck in this place I like to call, it's like purgatory, man. I knew that big changes were required, like, for instance, giving up alcohol and all that came with that. But, I had one foot in and one foot out, and I was pretty miserable because I was living in this purgatory land, in this middle land, not really living for years. Okay? So if that's you really need to come to a decision. How much worse am I willing to let this get? It's not just about stopping the behaviors you're doing. You think, oh my gosh, well, who will I be if I stop? I don't know. Let me just rant here. Who will I be if I stop sleeping with beautiful women? Or if I stop, going out and partying with all my friends and getting drunk and having a good time? Who will I be if I stop, trying so hard to make all this money all the time? That's just who I am. And you know what? That's something I thought too, and that's not what it is. When you give up these things, when you give up these behaviors that you do, and you get to what's underneath that, okay? Believe it or not, that can be pruned away. And what's left is not nothing. You're not left with nothing. You're not left a mindless puppet. You're left replacing that with what should be there. Because I have the belief now that there's good things inside all of us that we're born with. And we're born really knowing what right and wrong is. You know why? Because there is a compass inside each of us, okay? And those bad parts of you, those things that you dislike, that maybe you hate even, there's flip sides to that. There's good sides to that. You can replace those with the best qualities. So there is hope out there. Okay, it's a whole different universe of existence. It's not La La Land. I'm not some Pollyanna today. My life is not perfect. I deal with problems today. In fact, I was a little down today because my daughter is going through puberty and doesn't really want to hang out with me as much. And part of my journey was running back to my kids, was getting sober for myself, for God, figuring all these things out, and then being able to be with my children 100%. And I've had a tough, actually, couple weeks because she's hit puberty, and and things are changing a little bit on me. But my life's not perfect. But you'll understand what they mean when they say your worst day living this way, once you're out of this vortex, is going to be better than your best day living in the vortex, living how you are now, suffering. Because, you think you're having a great time, but you do know, right, that behind that, there's always that fear. There's always something here. There's a boogeyman in the house running loose, right? And you're always afraid he's going to get you. You're always running from him. There's a anxiety or sense of dread or kind of darkness around it all. And once that's out of your life, okay, once that's shut away, once you kick him out of the house, there's problems. Life can suck sometimes. But it's a different kind of suck. It's a suck that you actually know will go away and get better. And that's a whole different way of living, guys. So that's all I got to say today. Okay, again, we talked about, being a guy with low self-esteem, insecurity issues, this sense of lack. Okay, we talked about, what that hole inside really is. Okay, we talked about how you're craving attention and, trying to fill that thing. And then we talked about even when you fill it, you think it not being enough. And you keep going and going and going because you're on this treadmill and it's never enough, it seems. So what do you do? And then, in closing, I said, well, we need to have wholesale philosophical changes. And I warned the ladies, this isn't something that happens overnight if your man's a true sufferer. And I warned you brothers, I said, this takes a lot of work, guys. This is not a 3 easy tips video, okay? This is a change your freaking life video. I call myself the agent of change because I'm a real estate agent today, right? I'm in a good business. I've done really, really well for how long I've been doing this. And trust me, man, it takes a lot of freaking work. But it's possible. So you're not doomed to live this life. You're not doomed to keep running, keep searching, keep filling, okay? You can get better. You can change, all right? Listen, thanks so much for watching. I appreciate it. If you like this, subscribe, share this video. I really appreciate your support. Again, my name's Paul Graves, and thanks so much, guys. Make it a kick-ass day. See ya.